Where you, I was trying to go in with your mic.
Well, praise the Lord, everybody. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in with us this beautiful Thursday morning. Real Talk for Real Men on Awesome Radio, WBIS-LP 106.9 on your FM dial. We're so glad to be with you today, and so glad that you're with us. And we're going to get started. First of all, I'm Pastor Dan Lawson of the United Gospel Outreach Church in Kinston, North Carolina. And I'm going to let these other fellows introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Elder Nat Farrell, Kingdom of Heaven Ministries.
I'm Pastor Tremaine Forbes, Kingdom of Heaven Ministries.
Coach Vernon Garrison, WBIS LP 106.9.
Amen. Bless the Lord. We've got a posse here today, and we're ready to move forward. We're bringing effective teaching principles that will help men navigate their way through this life in a prosperous, positive, successful way. What do we got on the table for the day?
Today we'll be talking about ways to create wealth, and then we'll refine it in a moment. But different ways to create wealth in our communities.
Okay, so there are some principles whereby we can create wealth, particularly in the Black community. We want to focus. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
What are some of your ideas, Pastor Lawson, on how to create wealth?
Well, let's just say that first of all, that I think that our community, first of all, our Black community, is a good target for these principles because I think that we may be a little behind on that, and I know that some of us are wealthy, but there are a lot of others, still waiting to move on the east side. So I'm going to start with education.
Okay.
I'm going to start with education because I don't care what you're dealing with. If you don't have the knowledge, whether you are an athlete, whether you are dealing with politics, whether you're dealing with the law, whether you're talking about good employment, high wages, if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't know what's going on, then you're already at a disadvantage. Having the knowledge gives you some leverage. I like to think about what Marvin Gaye said a long time ago, before you young people knew anything about it. He asked the question, what's going on? And if you don't know what's going on, then you're already in the back of the line. So what say you, brother?
All right. Well, I'd like to say, top of the morning, everybody. God bless you, and thank you for joining in today. We first have to understand the game that we're playing. If we're looking at the kingdom of God, then already there's some rules of engagement when it comes to wealth and riches, and there's some very defined in scriptures. Luke 12 and 13 talking about the rich fool. So we definitely, and from my standpoint, when it comes to wealth, I'm talking about the wholeness of life. I'm talking about faith without works. I'm talking about the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, if you will. And that's not, I don't think that's in the scripture, but God has not given us a spirit of fear, which gives us the opportunity to pursue peace and to actually work in love and understand that love is empowerment. I'm going to say the same thing twice. If I love you without power, then that love is powerless. I'm not providing for you if I don't have a social position and the manifestation of God's love in our lives. So like I said, I wanted to say the same thing twice. So now if we were playing a board game like Monopoly, the rules of engagement, of capitalism, which is our way of life, which is how we set our economy. It is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry is controlled by private owners and profit. in an era of free market capitalism. A guy named Adam Smith dreamed that idea up and is implemented here in America. So listen to what I just said. Private owners for profit. So if your goal is not to become a private owner for profit, you're going to be part of the labor force here in America. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because it's a part of investment, it's a part of life, but a part of a way of our economy. And first of all, we should look at ourselves in comparison to the rest of the world in a sense, if we want to see reality. We're better at our worst than a lot of people are in certain countries, okay? So let's be blessed today because like the rich man said, I'll say this and I'll pass the mic on, that I got so much, I need so many vast storage spaces, and I'm going to build and become even more rich. Well, God said your soul might be required today, tonight. So don't get all wrapped up in what we're saying to the degree that you don't understand where God wants you to be. But I don't want you begging bread. Poverty means death and despair. We have to play the game where we make a profit and not be job dependent. And so my solution, number one, is understand we are in a capitalist society. Let's play that game when it comes to how we pursue this conversation, gentlemen.
All right, Elder.
I'm going to bring it right back to what Pastor Lawson said about education. And the education, when it comes to wealth, has to do with understanding and being educated in the ways of wealth itself, of how the system works and how money works.
Amen.
And I think that's, if we go in that direction, we can kind of narrow this conversation down to the type of education and the things that we need to do individually and teach your children to do as they grow. So I think if we kind of narrow that focus down in understanding how wealth is built and how we pass it on.
Okay, what we're going to do now, let's turn to the 10 ways that to build wealth. And this is something that was out of a magazine I used to read years ago. Number one, I will live within my means. What does that mean to you? Living within your means.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Before we talk about living within our means, let's talk about what wealth is, real quickly.
Okay.
What is wealth?
Okay.
It was Mother Teresa wealthy, was Mahatma Gandhi wealthy, if a person has a lot of money, but they're in bondage of drugs, are they wealthy? Is it just money?
Well,
Or is that what we're talking about, just money?
but in the sense, we do understand that you can leave a legacy. We're talking about wealth. The difference between riches and wealth, riches is like money that you earn, like a lot of people in the NBA or in the NFL, they'll earn a whole massive amount of money, like MC Hammer and Michael Jackson.
Okay.
But it's the money that you have that stays. And so now riches are determined by the new money that you're getting in. Wealth is money that you transfer. So then you can be wealthy in different things, but we're talking about money at this moment.
Okay.
But if you're talking about wealth itself, grandmama left you a wealth and a legacy if she prayed, and she prayed and she took care of business, or dad or mom they prayed, they took care of business, and they left you a wealth of godliness. That's wealthy.
Okay.
You can have other forms, and we could go on and on. You can be wealthy. Maybe your dad was a fitness instructor or a nutritionist. It can leave you a wealth of health. Taught you principles how to stay healthy. Maybe there's certain foods and different things that they did. I know a family, they never let their children drink coffee or drink soda. So then that's a level of wealth, but that's inside of your health. But today we're talking about wealth in the sense of finances.
Okay.
And so then going back to point number one, I will live buy or live within my means.
Okay, so let me comment on that because that's why I asked the question. Because, you know, part of wealth in the mind of many people is having the ability to splurge. So if I'm a millionaire, I go anywhere I want to go, eat anything I want to eat, buy anything I want to buy.
And be broke.
And then if there's another millionaire that's not doing nothing, I may think that I'm more wealthy than him because he's got it, but it ain't doing him no good because he's living within his means, whatever that means. So I guess there's a balance between, okay, I live within my means and really being tight so I can get more wealthier.
And and I'll give it to you, Elder.
Okay,
You
I'm
can-
gonna let it go. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
ask some hard questions.
Well,
here.
you can, just like that, even in your natural life, you can spend your life, you can save parts of your life, or you can invest your life in things that are eternal. And that's another something I teach, but I ain't gonna tap into that. But go ahead, Elder.
I was thinking about, I think wisdom comes into play. If you have a family, living within your means helps you keep the family together, keep things going right, because you're not outspending what you have. And you can also do that and save and invest and build so that your means will become more. So, but you have to start where you are and deal with where you are. And if you can only afford, I heard somebody preach this one. If you can only afford the oodles or noodles at the time, okay, that's where you are now. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there. And so I just kind of think that's pretty much where you're coming from with that.
And when we talk about living within your means, that's relative. You know, that
There's a balance in that.
yeah.
there.
Me living it within my means might be different from how you live within your means. What do you think when you think about living within your means?
Living within your means to me being you are utilizing the talents that you're given. You're not coveting your talents beyond reason. You managing what you have, but if God has given you a gift, you're going to invest that. You're not going to sit back and play it safe, but you're not going to do that without considering what you already have, your lot, if you will, the measure in which you have been given. That's where you're going to measure that from. But you are going to stretch your faith. If God has given you some talents, you're just not going to hold on to it. You're going to put it out there. So other people that look at you may think you're trying to live beyond your means, but you may have counted the cost in what you're doing. At the point, you may take a loss. But taking a loss right now in the stock market might mean you'll take a larger gain a little later because you're in it for the long run. So don't measure yourself based on someone else. Measure yourself based on what God said and what you have, and stay within your means of wisdom and knowledge, like Elder Nat was saying.
It sounds like if you're going to invest, you almost have to live below your means. In other words,
Amen.
In other words, you don't spend everything you can afford to spend because you want to be able to invest.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of balancing that you do to do that principle.
Can I add something to that? Also, and I learned, I heard this when I was young, not so much investing as saving. In other words, if I got $1 and I save 10 cents,
Accumulation.
so that is also a way of, we don't call it investing, but saving is important because you never know when that comes into play. So I think that's a part, and I just used $1, but of course we're talking about more than that. But I think a lot of the older folks believed in that I know about, but in the long run, that came out to be a good principle to go with, and I think it'll come into play in some of these other principles that we're
Yeah, and it
talking
is
about.
invested unless you do like some of the older folk put it in a can or a jar,
and see-
put it in the kitchen.
And then we have to understand that because there's savings and investing, and it really took a shift for me when the pandemic came in, and I really kind of started to become to understand it differently. Because I was a saver, and I had some money, and as I sat back on that money, I read something and studied something that said, while you're sitting back on your money, the American dollar is losing value. So then it
Yeah.
transformed to,
Inflation is killing it.
yeah, and so then now you invest to beat the pace of you losing the money losing value.
Yeah, and if you got it in a bank, you may not be investing it, but
Yeah.
the bank is investing
yeah.
your money and
Oh,
making money off your money, so
Oh,
you
yeah.
might as well invest it yourself.
Well, that's a story for another time because that is true.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
Because your money, the bank is taking your money and becoming wealthy.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to talk about that. We'll talk about the rule of 72 one day. All right, we're going to go to principle number 2. I will maximize my income potential through education and training. I'm going to hand that over to Elder, and then back to you, Pastor Lawson, and we'll go back to you, Vern.
I think in a way we've kind of dealt with that to a point. Your education and training is learning how to deal with and understand money itself. I was watching something, I forget where it was right off the top. I think it was a YouTube video. A woman was speaking about that, where she was a teacher. And in her teaching, she also taught the kids about money. You know, and I think that's one of the missing aspects of education, because those at the higher levels of money are not necessarily interested in you learning about money, because they want you to be the workers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Yeah,
what I'm
it
just
is.
saying.
Yeah, it is.
So it's not really in the curriculums, but it should be in the households
Yeah.
that you learn about money and how it works, and what you just said about the banks,
That's good.
because these are things that once we know how it works, then we can work it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I especially agree with the fact that a lot of education needs to take place in the home, because it needs to start early. The sooner you can get your child addicted to learning, the better that child is going to be at figuring things out and making decisions, even decisions and choices out in the streets, when people try to get them to or influence them to do things that's not going to benefit them. If you get your child to thinking clearly at a very early age, they learn how to look down the road and see the end of a matter,
That's right.
you know, before they make a choice to go that way. And I think that's so important to get young people addicted to learning, because if not, learning just never attracts them, and it be something that they would loathe and resist. But if you can get them learning early, you know, let your child count your money. You know, you better count it before you give it to them, but let them count your money.
Count some money.
Let them help you. Let them help you and understand your budget. You know, when you get your check, let them say, okay, I need put the rent aside, put the light bill aside, you know, pull out this and pull out that. Let them assist you with that, and you'll find out that that could pay off for both them and you later on down the road.
I like that. Vernon, you have a minute.
Yeah, make them masters of training and education and investment. As I said, capitalism, what is it? I don't know if very many people know. I got more to say about that later, but training our students, training our children in the way that they should go, we should direct them. It's either pay now or pay later. Generation Z, the younger people, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, they are scared to become adults. You do the research, Google that. These young people are still living at home, afraid to move out of the house, and afraid to become adults. We have not equipped them with the financial knowledge they need. So do that. That's my articulate perspective.
You can take us to break.
Train them in the way that they should go, ladies and gentlemen. We duly thank you for joining us on this show. This is WBIS LP 106.9, the best station on your dial right now. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back, the gentlemen, men of God, and scholars with Real Talk for Real Men.
Hi, this is Minister Andrew Davis. Are you overwhelmed with the cares of life? Are you stressed and don't know what to do? Does your spirit need encouragement? If the answer is yes, then tune in to Sound Biblical Truth on Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. and Friday at 7 o'clock p.m. Again, Sound Biblical Truth on Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. and Friday at 7 o'clock p.m. It will be food for your spirit and encouragement to your soul. And remember, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Have a safe and victorious week. God bless you.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
All right, we're back with Real Talk for Real Men on 106.9 FM. We are going to open up the door. If you would like to be a tax deductible sponsor, you can call 252-756-3137. That's 252-756-3137 and talk to our program manager. Even though this is Black History Month, we want to acknowledge that that this company is owned by a Black woman, and we thank God for her and her being able to leverage the market and open up doors for everyone. Because we do have sponsors all across the board. We just thank you for being sponsors, and know this, that your sponsorship is tax deductible. Tax deductible. We're going to move on, and we're going to talk about I will effectively manage my budget, my credit, my debt, and tax obligations. I will effectively manage my budget. Whenever you're setting a budget, one of the things that you should keep in mind is don't budge. Set the budget. I always set the way I started setting my budget, or how I learned to set it, was that you take all that you just look at how much money you're spending, and look how much money you're getting coming in. First, as we call income. Then look at your outgo, and then what you do, you set in between that some miscellaneous. So you're gonna look at your mortgage or rent. You're gonna look at your lights, your utilities, all the utilities, water, all that. Then all your bills, and then you look at that, and you want to create enough of space in between it. So you want to manage the money that you have, and that's truly what it's all about, managing your money. Elder, what things do you do when a person really wants to manage their money? What's your insights on that?
Well, the thoughts that were coming to my mind as you were speaking,
Yes, sir.
we've got to, like you said, you know what's coming in because you know what you make. But it's harder to keep track of what's going out because we spend a lot of miscellaneous, as you would say, on miscellaneous things. And if you can really get to, and I thought about this week, because riding now, I find that I need to spend differently. Mm-hmm. I go to the store a little differently. And one of the things that came to my mind was I'm picking up this and I'm picking up that. Let me start saving these receipts.
That's good, Elder.
So I can kind of, at some point, maybe weekly or whatever, how much did I spend on this? How much? And I've seen this written before where somebody said, keep track of what you spend things on. Even that little pack of gum. See, and one of the things, and I'm gonna pass it on, but one of the things I remember riding the bus, when the bus was 75 cents, people didn't have change and they put in $1. And I've heard people say it's only a quarter. It's only a quarter. And I thought about that thing. I said, yeah, but after you do 4 quarters,
Uh-huh.
okay, and see what I have found, folks without, that don't have, do that more than folks that have.
Yeah.
I worked for a fella, and I'm gonna definitely pass it on down. I worked for a fella over in, dog, I can't think of the area now, wealthy guy. And we went to the store, and the change was 37 cents. I don't know what happened, but man, he had a fit over that 37 cents. And this guy was a millionaire.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Right.
he was kind of like, where's the 37 cents? And I was kind of like, okay, how you think dictates how you act and treat money.
That is good. Pastor Lawson, I hate to take you off the drill because you might want to answer that one. We're on principle 4 coming up, but this is what I want you to do. I'm going to add a principle, and I want you to talk about it. Where do tithing fit into this, Pastor Lawson? Gotcha.
The biggest investment that you can make in life
Okay.
is tithing,
Okay. Explain it.
because there is no other institution that pays off better than the kingdom of God. You know, banks talk to you about their 4% and 5% and 10%, but you know what God says?
What are you talking about?
Some 30, some 40, some 100-fold. That's good interest. That's good return on the investment right there. So, and then it can go even beyond that. But yeah, it does, because first of all, the scripture says it is God that gives you power to get wealth. Now, if he's given you the power to get wealth, you've got this. A lot of people don't know this about God. He always expects something in return. It's always a two-sided deal. He wants something out of the deal every time. Everything he gives you, he wants something back. If he gives you power to get wealth, he's going to want to have a say into what you do with it. You see? So if he gives you 100%, one of the first things you want to do is make sure you give back that 10%.
That is so good.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
could go on and on, but I'm gonna stop.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Vern, I'm going to take you. We're going to go into the next principle. I will save at least 10% of my income. But even if you're not doing 10%, tell us, what are your thoughts on saving?
Well, saving is a reflection of your mentality, your reflection of whether you're a consumer or whether you are part of the plan. You're part of the social construct here in America. You're part of are you a capitalist? Are you raising capital? Are you about generating wealth and passing it on? Well, I know we got that to talk about later, but that 10% says, if you come to the table and we're all gambling, you got to put something on the table. Or else, do you got what you bringing to the table? How much we starting with? $1, $10,000, $5. You know, in my dad's shot house, you came to the gambling table, you had to put some money on the table, and everybody had to determine what we were going to start playing with. And then the house got I believe it was 15% my dad took from every game. It was a percentage, and he said, boy, go there and get our money. And I'd go get it from the guys after the game was over. Your 10% says you're in the game, it's your investment, your discipline. One thing I want to point out, when you're reading these, everyone you have said so far says, I will. I will. That somebody assumed that you had a coach or a presumptuous authority over you that made you commit or encouraged you commit, but you are saying, I will live my life within my means. I will maximize my income. I will. There's a will, and will is next to shall. Shall is really up there, but will is a future tense word that you are committed. I need everyone to be committed to their finances to become a private player, a capitalist in this system, or else we'll end up just job dependent. I don't want you to get an education just to be educated on the numbers. I want you to be educated so you can become one of the numbers, the manage the numbers, the institution, a bank, a hospital, an insurance company, or some type of part in this economy so that you can control it, and your children will have children that can be a part of setting the stage, or else our enemies don't sleep at night.
That's good.
Just know that.
That's good. I'm gonna touch number 5 real quick. It said I will use home ownership as a foundation for building wealth. I met a young man, and quite naturally, you talk to your money advisor or however you do. I met a young man. What he does, he buys houses, but sometimes he buy modulars, and he would put it on land. He would take the value that's in the house that he bought and take it and re-up and buy something else. And then he quite naturally take it and move on. Money, just build it. He'll borrow, buy, move on, and use the equity to keep building business. And so then our next principle says, I will use home ownership as a foundation for building wealth. We'll let y'all, we're gonna talk about that. We'll also talk about I will devise an investment plan for my retirement needs and children's education, and I will ensure that my entire family adheres to sensible money management principles. And we're gonna talk about them all collectively when we come back in, and then we're gonna go and move on, through. But on that note, you're listening to Real Talk for Real Men on the radio, and we'll be back after this sponsor.
Can public events affect your witnessing rights in America? Stay tuned.
Legal advice you must not ignore. All ahead on today's Legal Alert.
Evan was an avid witness for Jesus Christ, and he even liked to preach in the open air every now and then with his other people at the church. He knew his city was holding a large-scale event that would bring thousands of people to the city, and he was excited to get in the thick of it and witness and preach and let people know about Jesus Christ. However, he was told by police there were some additional speech restrictions when he went to set up. Could that be legal? He called us at the Christian Law Association. Our attorneys explained that big events can transform public forums into limited forums or even non-public forums in the name of crowd control. They helped Evan analyze his particular event and found him the best way he could to keep witnessing at this great event for Christ. He had the right to witness, but he had to be careful as to what the law was in the event he was at.
Hope that perspective is helpful for your ministry. And if you've got more questions, why not link up with an attorney at our website, christianlaw.org. That's christianlaw.org.
Surely in the famine, God is with me. Surely in the famine, God is with me. Surely in the famine, God is with me.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Talk for Real Men. And we're having an amazing discussion today. We're dropping knowledge. We're dropping information that is essential to life, health, and the spiritual plight of you and your family. So we thank you for your full attention. The men of God in this community have assembled right here at WBISLP 106.9 FM. And I'll turn it back over to Pastor Trey, the host of the show.
All right, let's hit these let's hit these real quick. I'm gonna hand Pastor Lawson number 5. I'm gonna hand you number 6, Vernon. I'll take 7, and then Elder can take 8. I will use home ownership as a foundation for building wealth, Pastor Lawson.
Yes, home ownership has so many advantages financially and otherwise, but definitely financially. Once you do a mortgage could last for 20 to 30 years, which means that your cost for your housing will never change for 30 years if you do the mortgage right. Okay, so that's one advantage. The other advantage is as you pay for your home, the equity that builds up in your home belongs to you. It's yours, it's valuable, and it's always there for you when it's needed. That's another advantage. Another advantage is you get a tax deduction for the interest that you pay on your mortgage. Another advantage is as inflation rises, your home becomes more valuable than what it was when you paid for it. that belongs to you. That increase, I bought my house a long time ago for $50,000. It's a 4-bedroom brick home. It's now worth more than $150,000. That's how it's valued right now. That's the basis that they're using for my property tax. So there's just so much that renting is a dilemma in a sense. I don't want to discourage people who are renting, but in a sense, it's a dilemma because you're paying for something, and every time you pay that rent, that's gone. It never comes back to you in any form or fashion. Okay. Whereas when you're buying a house, everything you pay on that house comes back to you in a sense.
All right.
Big difference.
Number 6, Vern, I would devise an investment plan for my retirement needs and children's education.
I want to always say something that's going to wake people up. I think it's a disgrace that if you believe that it's now appropriate to spend 50 years of your life working just for retirement and only enjoy the last 5, 6, 7, or 10 years of your life, I want to say that plan is not my plan. But I do believe that you should have if you're a good man, a good woman will leave an investment, will leave an inheritance to your children. So with that in mind, a plan is in fact what you need for their education. You should say this family needs this family needs an attorney, this family needs a doctor. And if you want to be anything else, then by all means, as you become a diversified investor, as you go into capitalism, you can buy the things you want extra to play with. You can become a car dealer. You can become a barber shop by owning one. You can play with capitalism, and that's the freedom. One of the things we asked for in integration in the civil rights movement was we asked for educational opportunities. We asked for the right to sit at the counter. We really need to ask for liberty. And our Caucasian brothers and sisters said, we don't want just an opportunity. Give me liberty or give me death. So you are willing to die for your children. And I'm willing to die for my brother because I'm my brother's keeper. So putting that in perspective, the future, I'm here for that if God blesses us to see it. But I'm loving this conversation right now.
That is so good. That's good. All right. And it says, I will ensure that my entire family adheres to sensible money management principles. Basically, I've tried to teach my kids about budgeting, and like I said, you set a budget, don't budge. It's try one thing that me and my wife used to do, because we didn't make hardly any money when we got married, and I know quite naturally people are a little older than I am. Y'all could tell a horror story worse than mine. But I think there was one time when Crystal and I got married, I think I was making like $475 maybe, $425 to $475. And I think she was making like 50 cents more than me. So I outpaced her. But, however, I had to throw that in there. Male ego. So I had like a monkey. Let me stop. No, but anyway, but you want to make sure that your children understand sensible money management principles. And I try to tell my kids that, and I realized I thought my children were just watching what I'm doing and they kind of understood some things. I had to go back and reteach it. That, okay, this is what you do. This is how you do. And then you expand however you can expand. And I learned a couple of things along the way. But you got to be sensible. Like, for instance, one thing that I did with my children, I helped them get their account. Then I started telling them, hey, put some, every month I made them pay it off. They buy something on credit card with $100 credit. Then I would pay it off, and I made sure, and it built up their credit real strong.
That's good.
And so when I was a teenager, let me go back. I understood finance, and then I'm gonna pass it to Elder. When I was a kid, my mom actually would give me $20 or $10 and tell me I couldn't spend it, and then she would let me spend it a little at a time, and it built in me a value conscious. And I had to, as I got older, I kind of kept that thought process. So as I got older, I would do that. When I was about 18, 19, I had a line of credit, And when I got it, I kept paying it off. And it was fun. I think I was 18 years old. And I went to buy a ring. And they told me, wow, you're 7. I said, I'm looking at your age. Are you 18? I said, yeah. Because I had a beard and mustache at that time. And they said, you got a 700. Your credit is 700. And I said, yeah. They said, how in the world you do that? But all I would do, I would just get money. I literally would pick up money. And right before the end of the month, I just put it back in the bank. I got it and I put it back in. And I was building my credit just like that because I really didn't need to use it. And I always had the mind, I'd rather spend what I have versus. And so that had built my credit score up. Now I'm going to pass over to Elder, verse number 8. And I know this is something dear to his heart. I would support creation and growth of minority-owned businesses.
Yeah, I think that's an important factor. It's really gotten a little complicated because of the way the system has changed. It was more pertinent during segregation because we had communities where we pretty much had to shop with each other. We had to deal with each other. And so the community was there and we supported each other. Now we can still do that, but we got to understand how the system has changed. And so I think we still need to do that, but we need to, like I said, understand, that, the store that you're going to shop at is not down the street. It's not, it may be somewhere else. And so as we understand that and deal with that, I think we can still do that. But it's a different story now. But yes, I agree. We need to patronize and deal with each other.
I like what Miss Perez says. She said, you learn by exposure. That is so true. We learn by exposure. Oh, that's good, Elder. Number 9, because I know you know about this too. Vern, can you address I will guarantee my wealth is passed on to the future generations through proper insurance and estate planning?
Well, thank you. And I'm trying to move through it pretty quick. I want to say, gentlemen, that it's a great show. We're checking our vision. Dr. King said about his speech, probably 11 months before he died, and this is on subject. He said, I believe my dream became a nightmare. He felt like the dream that he spoke of, that I have a dream. You remember that one?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
When he spoke of that, he said that became a nightmare because the country was in war and it was drowning out some of the benefits and social needs that he was going for in teaching society. I'm saying with number 9, the proclamation, I will guarantee my wealth is passed on to the future generations through proper insurances and estate planning. That means you're a player in the game. You own estates, okay? You own insurances, which is actually capital. And the fact that
explain that, Vern, that insurance is capital.
Insurance is capital because it's a monetary value that you've accumulated on a monthly basis that you've paid into that's been sitting there growing at a particular interest rate, but depending on whether you have term insurance or whole life insurance for a certain time.
What's the difference between whole life insurance and term life insurance?
Well, I'd say whole life is more of a lump sum of money that you can use more, and I'd say term life has got parameters. It's got time. It's time sensitive based on you passing away. Everything is a bet. This cat tested me. Everything is a bet on how long you're gonna live, and so you're gonna live a certain amount of time. A long run might be better to get whole life, and then you have a large amount of money you can borrow against whole life. Term is just a term that if you die before this time, we're gonna pay you this amount of money,
Or you're not going to get paid.
or you're not.
Because like I have what I did, term is generally cheaper. And so I have a term policy because what I'm trying to do, now it's a big amount in it, but it's kind of like that betting, like Vern said. It's a big amount. So what I'm trying to do is grow up my investments And I got that term to hold it down until, and hopefully I live longer than the term that I set it for. And what I'm trying to do is get my investments to catch up to what I had for it that surpassed my insurance. And so once I get to that term, because I paid off certain things, I don't have a car payment. Well, yeah, I do have one now. But there's certain bills I don't have. I ain't gonna go to all of them. And so now I'm trying to get that to stretch out. So that's how I kind of do that. We're gonna hit number 10 by Elder. Then we're gonna just make it where we can just talk. What's number 10? Elder is, I would strengthen my community through philanthropy. Can you talk about that a little?
I keep this simple, pretty much. Giving.
Okay.
That's essentially what philanthropy is.
That's good.
You know, when you take and you give to worthwhile causes within the community that help the community.
That's good.
So that's basically what it is. I
Okay.
don't think it needs to go.
Well, then
we can complicate things.
Look,
We can
now-
keep that one simple.
Now I know you used to play basketball in New York, so since you passed the ball off, I'm passing it right back to you. Now you talk about what you want to talk about on these principles.
Well,
Not
none
the
of
Knicks. Not the Knicks.
Don't let him distract you, Elder. Come on.
Look, I had a way of bringing that in too, but that's another story. I want to go back to passing on. And I know I always speak about my granddad. My granddad was an important figure.
Your
in my-
granddad, my hero. I've been down there.
you know, and we come from a community where a lot of the black folks in the community own their land. And so he was a landowner. And I remember him telling me, as we sat on the porch, he had gotten old and he had the stroke, and we were sitting talking. And I remember him telling me, I'm going to give my land to my children. And he said, if it were my wife, she'd have sold it. But I'm gonna give it to my children, because his mom had given him the land that he started with. And it started him off, and to build the farm and to do. And then he bought a little bit more land. He understood the value of owning. I remember I heard about, my mom told me, because she was, young then, that he had a little store. So he understood that whole concept, and he passed it on. And most of his children got into doing things where they owned. They worked also, but they also got into their own little businesses. And so I think it's a concept that we pass that on. And I tell you, and I'm going to pass this on. But you talking about how your mom taught you. He taught his children. And a lot of that stuff comes in. Maybe we didn't get into, he wasn't sophisticated into all the banking elements.
Right.
But what he had, he understood the value of it. And I think that's an important factor.
Pastor.
I'd just like to comment on, whatever investments we make, whatever passing ons we do, to next generations, whatever philanthropy we do, we must understand the principle of good ground. We have to distinguish, where that investment could be best maximized. When you're giving money in your community, oftentimes you want to start with the church, but you got to look for a church that's having an impact. Okay, you want to talk about minority businesses. There's a whole lot of minority businesses that I don't deal with. There are a lot of minority businesses that have burnt me. So I want to be able to distinguish, those minority businesses where I could get the best impact. Somebody that seems to be prepared for what they're doing. They didn't just jump in the business, but they came in with preparation. They came in with knowledge. They have a clear moral compass in terms of what their business is supposed to be. They're not cheating people, not trying to rip people off. So good ground, to me, is a principle that we all should utilize, even when you're passing things on to your children. I mean, you can generally say, yeah, I want to make sure that I Yeah, but every child you have ain't a child that you need to pass something on to. Let's just be real. You know, sometimes you may need to give everything you got to one child to make sure the rest of them are looked after.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Sometimes you can have a child that you know if you give them everything you got, they're going to look out for everybody in the family because they've already demonstrated it. And you also know you got a child that if you give them everything you got, they ain't going to get nobody nothing and they ain't going to take care of themselves.
Okay, now you look. I'm gonna put this on the table because I've done this before. I mean, talking to people. What do you think, Vern? Do you think that you would distribute your, and this is opinion, would you distribute your money equally to all your children to keep maybe jealousy and this and that out? Or would you do the, like he said, by what you feel like who can handle things best?
Yeah, you would definitely just give them according to their gifts and talents. The ones who have the wherewithal to do certain things, the investor, the builder. You might have one child left at your house, hopefully, that'll just take care of you. They don't do a whole lot of numbers. They don't do this. They can cut the grass, and they're going to be there to when you transition. So
And they can have a house.
Right. Children have different talents and gifts, and as long as you give them their measure, their equity, and their measure, that will be. Now, if you have the will and the wherewithal to give them all $100,000, you could do it that way. I'm not saying can't, give one 150, another 100, but I would say you don't have to stick to that rule. I heard a guy. Last thing I'll say, he said, now looking at our economical situation as a black man, I'm letting my male children and my female children stay in my house as long as they need to
Come back and reset.
to get themselves established in the community. I'm not kicking them out at 18 or 19. So you see how he's redistributing and he's coming back and setting up another game plan because we're competing against immigrants in this country and they're using that. So we got to use it. Let your kids stay home.
I like that. I'm gonna give it the last minute to you. Take us on out.
Well, I don't know if I will get all that, but one of the things is that's an interesting question because that can be, oh man, it can start all kind of stuff. I've seen a little bit of that.
Let's start some trouble then. I'm with you.
No. I'm just saying, as you do that, children will do some things. My insurance man told me this. When people die, things change.
God knows it
All
does.
kind of stuff happens. So yeah, you might have that idea. It sounds good. But when folk die, that's a whole nother story. Well, this has been another show on 106.9 FM. We'll see you next time. Have a blessed week.
There you go.